Now we're going to spend a few minutes talking about what are referred to as horizontal shifts, and phase angles. The term phase shift is actually a measure of horizontal shifting. So we're going to be looking at left-right shifts here. If the phase shift is positive, the horizontal shift will be to the right. If the phase shift is negative, the horizontal shift will be to the left. So to get the horizontal shift, this is a little bit like when we talked about shifts before, we're going to have to write the equation. And notice I left the midline piece, the up-down shift, off here. We have to write the equation in the following form. Either y equals a sine b times t plus t minus h, or y equals a cosine b times t minus h. So you'll notice inside of the function, we're going to do this factoring out of the coefficient on the variable. So that's really what the point is there. You'll notice the b was separated from the t. The t will be the variable. So I need to factor that out. Once I do that, the h is the horizontal shift or phase shift, and the b times h is what we'll call the phase angle. So notice I've given a graph here. The red graph is actually a sine function, and the blue graph is a phase shifted. So what I've just done is picked the graph up and moved it over a little bit. And so what that's illustrating is a bit of a phase shift. And actually what I did is a phase shift, and it might be a little hard to see. I actually did a shift of pi over 4. That's actually moved pi over 4 units. And so you might want to even put that in your calculator. Put your calculator in radians to see this, but you might want to put it in your calculator and illustrate that. Let's take a look at one example or so. So if I take a look at y equals 7 sine, and then in parentheses pi over 4 times x minus 1, if I look at the graph, this is actually what the graph would look like. Notice with that pi over 4 factored out, and if I look at the graph, it actually looks like a sine graph that's been shifted 1 unit to the right. And so if I do that factoring out the coefficient of x, this right here actually is the old left-right shift. And so this is showing that the entire graph is shifted 1 unit to the right, and the pi over 4 ends up being what we would call the phase angle. So notice I said that down below. The horizontal phase shift is 1 unit to the right, and the phase angle is the pi over 4. And again, I would get that phase angle not because I factored out a pi over 4, but because if I took the pi over 4 and multiplied it onto this constant, it would end up giving me pi over 4. So remember, it's not what you factor out, but it's the actual full multiplication. There's a couple of questions in the book. We'll talk about it a little bit, but it's in my world, it's not a big deal, although you might see a minor question on an exam or a relatively minor question on the final exam.